welcome to the podcast. Thanks for agreeing to come on. I'm excited. This is our first FE podcast, which will go out as the FE podcast. We did a special last during March, April, during lockdown, and this is the first FE podcast. So welcome on.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me.
No problem at all. So you said doing some research when you sent me some things over, and quite a fantastic career. And I just want to pick out two things really to start with, and you can kind of fill in the gaps.
Okay.
Really, you started as a level 2 business administration apprenticeship in 1996, and then to 2020, you've now helped improve the lives of 30,000 people and 6,000 businesses you've supported as well. I mean, that's fantastic accolade to from being an apprentice to then helping 30,000 people. How did the journey start into business for yourself?
Oh, so I suppose I didn't start my apprentice till I was 21. So at 16, I wanted to join the RAF. Being honest, I completely failed my entrance exams, didn't do very well at school, failed my medical. And I suppose just messed around between 16 and 19 in different odd jobs, not really knowing what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
At 19, I went to be a redcoat at Butlins. Have to say, had a fabulous year, loved it, but came back with really no idea of what I wanted to do. And I was working in a local bar and restaurant, and one of the ladies who was a really good customer came in and said to me, why don't you come and do some courses with us? Because I was just moaning that if I wanted a social life, I didn't want to work split shifts. It was, all my friends were out. And I suppose then they say the rest is history. I went and did, my mum paid for some commercial courses for me. I learned to touch type on a typewriter. I learned to use word processing. I'd hate to say what version, I don't know. And I did a diploma with a large training brand nationally. And then the lady who owned that brand said to me, why don't you come and work with us and let's forge your career? So I do owe a lot of my career to that lady. I went to work for the brand. The franchisor then offered me a job nationally, and I became an apprentice. So I worked my way through the ranks quite quickly. And I was helping lots of people in business write funding applications for bids. And I think driving back from Dover one Friday afternoon, stuck on the M25 at 7 o'clock at night, just thought I gave up the career that I actually really enjoyed in hospitality because I wanted some kind of life. And I'm still driving back at 7 o'clock on a Friday evening, stuck on the M20. So I just thought, why am I doing this for other people? It's time to take the plunge. So I went home and thought, right, what do I need to do? So as they say, DBC was born. I then got out a bank loan, set up the organisation in Derby with just myself and 2 other staff. And over the years, I've grown the business to help 30,000 individuals. Obviously, I'd love to say that I've helped all of those individuals. It's DBC and the team, and everything I do, I couldn't do without the team.
Yeah,
that's a fantastic team around me that work really hard and actually put the individual at the heart of everything that they do.
And in the beginning, how hard was it to get it moving when you took out the bank loan? Because that's a massive risk, really, isn't it? Taking out a bank loan to fund a business. And how hard was it in the beginning? Very.
There were times that I'd come home in the evening and think, why am I doing this? I can't take any money, no salary, I can't see light at the end of the tunnel. But I think that's the same in business today. You get lots of highs, lots of lows, and you just have to ride them out and do it. I think over the years, I obviously set this up as an apprentice, just finished my apprentice, was 25 and hadn't got any formal management training, any skills, never managed staff or teams before. I think over the years you just grow and you learn really from the mistakes. If you don't make the mistakes, you can't then move on and do things better. I think it is hard. It's hard. I think business in general is hard anyway, and obviously we're in a pandemic at the moment, so most of my days at the moment are scenario planning. So it looks like that's going to happen and that's what we'll do. Oh, actually, there's an announcement tonight. That's not what we can do anymore. So this is what we're going to do. So I suppose a lot of planning in the business is just about learning. And I think one of the things that I've learned massively over the last 2 years, I've got a non-exec involved in the business.
Yeah.
For me, that's been massive. She's been a mentor. She's been able to say, actually, this is what you need to do. This is how you do it. And has actually, for the first time in my career for the last 20 years, set me targets.
And how did you choose that non-exec? How did that come about?
So I knew my non-exec prior to choosing her, and she'd obviously worked within the sector, very well renowned, and we just became quite good friends. And as she left the CEO of a very large training company because she wanted to semi-retire, part of her retirement was that she wanted to help individuals and businesses. So I suppose it was quite a natural fix. We'd been doing quite a lot anyway with this organisation, and I've got to know this lady very, very well. So
yeah, it's great.
It was a natural fix, and it's worked fantastically. I think the thing that it has done, being a small business and now being a medium-sized business, what that's done is allowed us to put in the structure to grow and to build a team around me. So now I have a full exec team. In actual fact, the first time last month we had a strategy day and I wasn't invited. Like, what's that about? Not going to your own strategy day? But ultimately, it's about, that's what I want. And actually, I've got this great team, so let them get on and do it.
Yeah, that's a good. And would you give that advice to any other people in your position, going from a small to medium, to have that external support?
Definitely. It's, for me, there is a saying that says it's very lonely at the top, and I suppose you don't realise because you just get on day in, day out. But actually, are you doing the right thing? Are you making the right decisions? So it is really nice on the growth period to have that voice to say, actually, what would you do? Is this right? Do we do it this way? And that input. Yeah. And I think for me, as a manager, you don't know everything. As I say, I set up the business and had never managed teams of people before. So you learn. So it's really nice to have somebody as a sounding board and someone who's been there and done that and grown the business in this sector.
Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic. So you touched on COVID there. Just how much of an impact has COVID had on your business when it began?
I think that's really hard to say as how much of an impact as it's had. We obviously, as soon as the government announced that schools would have to close on the Tuesday, we knew that we'd have to close also on the Friday. I suppose the biggest impact for us was on those 3 days from actually doing our day-to-day job, being in the learning centres, having learners in. How do we get our team fully operational to be able to work from home in 3 days? I think at the beginning of the pandemic, nobody knew how long it would go on for. And quite naively, I honestly thought we'd be back in the offices within a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I did as well.
Yeah, so it was how do you get your team and how do you get your IT and your resource? So the first thing, we were quite lucky because most of our IT was in the cloud anyway and in SharePoint. But we had a lot of people that hadn't used Teams or Zoom and hadn't delivered learning online, hadn't actually lesson planned and curriculum written for online learning. So it was a big move. How do we get this whole function of this business moving to online? Credit to the team, they did exceptionally well. We had a little bit of outsourced support, as in IT, but actually it's amazing. And I think one of the things that COVID has had an impact on is how we'll do business in future.
Yeah.
And I think if we go to, obviously, apprentices, our model initially was that we saw every apprentice once a month within the workplace. And yes, you cannot beat face-to-face learning. I think what this has taught us is that actually we don't need to be seeing everybody once a month in the workplace if it's not the right path for those learners. So I think it's taught us that we can offer a much more flexible package, be a bit more bespoke, be creative, be innovative. So they're the good things that have come out of COVID.
And I back that. I think FE's been quite a prehistoric way in delivering, when everything's gone online, everything's at the touch of a button now and on demand. And, we didn't as a sector really get moving, but I think the pandemic's happened and every business has had to do something online, which has definitely transformed the way it'll look in the future. How difficult do you think it's taken more time to deliver online than it did face-to-face?
I think initially, yes, because you've had to set up systems, procedures, rewrite curriculum, but then coming down to in the long term, then no, because once those systems are set up, the procedures are, we actually have an introduction to online learning course module, so actually for people to learn how to learn online. So I think, yes, initially, but I do think that actually we are in the generation now that people will be expecting much more online learning. So will it take more time? No, is my honest opinion. I think everybody learns differently and people obviously have different styles and methods of learning. But for those that online learning is really good for are people in the workplace that necessarily don't have the time to be out. Just in general, life in takes over in the evening. It's great that you can pick up your learning in an evening or a weekend, whereas if it's face-to-face, that can't happen. I honestly don't think you'll ever replace face-to-face learning, because I think it is, for me, it's the way that I learn.
Yeah.
But I do think we do need to move with technology, and there's lots of options and opportunities out there to develop even further the offer.
And how have you found the working with the unemployed and the people trying to move into work? How has that kind of been affected? Has it had a negative effect? Is there a downturn? Is there?
Yeah, I think that is quite hard. I think what we're seeing now, obviously our head office is in Derby, and we've been quite heavily hit by the pandemic in Derby. We've got the likes of Rolls-Royce, Toyota, Bombardier, and then all their supply chains around them. We've obviously part of the airport. So I think as a city, for our head office, for unemployed, that we have been hit massively hard. And I think the unemployed, again, potentially suffer, because if you've never, a lot of people we have, I'll give you an example. We had one lady who contacted us the other day for her actual boss and said, look, I've always been his PA. He doesn't actually know how to send an email or how to do Teams. He's had a very senior job, but I've done all the admin for him. So how then can you teach that person remotely? It is quite hard. So I think it depends again on the jobs that people have had, the sectors that they want to go into, because one of the sectors that is thriving here is logistics, which is the same everywhere really, but there's 2 new Amazons opening in this region, so there's big jobs in logistics and distribution, but actually that's not traditional. So they're not saying I want people with a forklift truck license, we're actually saying I want people with digital skills.
Yeah.
Digital skills is the big thing that is needed and the big requirement.
And how will you combat that, even with the pandemic going on? How are you guys preparing to deliver that digital skill need in across Derby?
So we have a programme in the D2N2 region, which is Derby, Derbyshire, Nottingham, Nottinghamshire, called the I programme, and we're the prime provider in there. We have 2 providers work with us, which are Derbyshire County Council and Enable, the voluntary sector. So we already offer a lot of digital curriculum, and that's for both employed and unemployed individuals. Yeah. And really interesting, in the pandemic, the I programme has taken off for employed individuals, because a lot of companies are saying, actually, again, I'll go back to logistics, that we need to set up people to be able to do Teams calls with suppliers. They need to learn how to communicate via email that they might not in their role previously. They've probably just picked up the phone or it's been a conversation. So the digital skills really, really are key, and we do a lot of them. And one of the courses that's been really, really good, and I hate this saying, so apologies, is we've done a 3-day new normal course, but we've had a massive, massive intake of that. And that's, again, teaching people the basic digital skills to be able to get online and be able to communicate effectively.
And what is the gap? What are you finding is when you're doing kind of that diagnostic of the learners, where are people feeling in, or where do they have a lack of knowledge in IT?
Again, I think that varies, because there's people very much at the entry level that have a massive gap, that have never really used IT. And again, that comes down to being able to access services such as being able to claim unemployment benefit, get online to check pensions, things like that. And then there's the gap at the other end, which is the more technical digital skills. So like your web design, coding. So there does seem to be a very elementary gap, the high gap, and the middle gap is, I suppose, as you would always get, people wanting to improve the digital skills that they've got.
Mm-hmm. And how do you guys see that transferring into the new normal? And so Amazon's coming to Derby, yep, creating loads of jobs. What kind of IT skills and what kind of skills are you preparing these guys who will be coming in to the biggest
skill at the moment that we are, because we are actually working with Amazon as part of their recruitment, and one of the biggest skills identified is actually getting people through their interview process, because it is fully online. So obviously nobody's going to site to be interviewed. So it's about being able to do the online application and then feel confident enough to do a Teams meeting and get through the Amazon process like that. So I think the biggest gap at the moment is giving people the basic digital skills to get them through a process.
And that is a good skill, that, because my wife's a nurse and she's just had a recent interview for another post, and her interview was on Teams, which is it's a very different skill set, selling yourself through a phone screen or a laptop screen and camera. And I think that's probably a good one to pick up with a lot of people, really.
Yeah, it is. And it's actually, to be fair, a lot of people are very conscious. We found that initially some staff said, I don't want to have my camera on. I don't like looking at myself. And I think it is about just learning, actually, this is the new normal. This is the way that we are going forward, that most employers are not going to go back to the way that they operated pre-pandemic. So they'll have made some changes that will stay in place. And you would guess a lot of recruitment will potentially be done like this moving forward.
Yeah. Where do you see the real potential coming out of the sector moving forward in the next maybe 2 years?
Well, a good question. Obviously, the digital entitlement and the level 3s are massive, I suppose, opportunity for providers and for individuals to work with. I think the big potential for me is still apprentices. There's still so much that can be done with the levy and the creation of new apprentices. I think that one of the things that this has shown us, and again it goes back to, have we got the right workforce to meet the skills? We're seeing lots of redundancies, but actually we come back, the people that have been made redundant potentially don't have the skills to move into the jobs of the future. I think there's lots that employers can do with their apprentices. I think that's still a massive big opportunity. And there's obviously the incentives around that to incentivize individuals, employers take on apprentices, which is great. Another big opportunity, I do think obviously it's very complicated, and I think that we've put a layer of bureaucracy that shouldn't be there in the Kickstarter. Actually, we've got a massive, the people that have been hit hardest by the pandemic are our youth, and we don't want to lose that generation. We really need to work with those individuals and young people to get that Kickstarter moving, so we don't lose the generation of talent.
Regarding the Kickstart scheme, because I know it's had a bit of press banded both ways, where do you think the successes will come on the Kickstart scheme, and where do you see you guys fitting in on that, and what's kind of the feedback from employers that you've been talking to on the Kickstart scheme?
So I think the Kickstart scheme, if it's run properly and it's done with individual employers that are looking to take on 2 or 3 young people that they can really mentor and give an opportunity to, is where the Kickstarter scheme will be done properly. If it's done in really large cohorts of 6 80s, 90s, are those young people going to get that opportunity to be mentored fully through that 6-month programme? Because part of Kickstarter isn't just about paying the wage incentive, it's about making sure that that individual has ongoing careers advice, CV support, so actually they're work ready if that placement doesn't turn into an opportunity. So for me, I think the intermediary role is really important to make sure that you are making sure that those individuals do have a mentor and they've got a career progression and there's opportunity for them at the end of it.
I do worry on the Kickstart scheme. I've seen a few people offering the service, and a lot of recruitment companies now offering to be the driver behind the 30, if you like. And I do think it's suited to a training provider to be the mentor, to be the support, because you guys are used to doing that with the apprenticeships, where I think some people who've popped up, I think they've seen it as maybe it's a bit of a money maker on there, being the person at the top.
It's very clear in the guidance that it has to be new jobs and not jobs that you would already have. So let's just use a sector, say food and drink manufacturing. They're going into peak, they have warehouse operative roles. So technically Kickstarter cannot be used for those. What it could be used for is because a lot of food and drink manufacturing organisations have very high attrition rates. So would it be worth them saying, can we have a few Kickstarters to help with the attrition rates? So it is very clear in the guidance that they have to be new vacancies, not vacancies that you would already have.
Mm-hmm. And how do you think the likes of traineeships and things will be affected because of that?
Again, I think it is a very complicated landscape, especially for employers, because as providers, we're used to the jargon and the landscape, and we can navigate and hide the wiring. But what we are finding is that a lot of employers are coming to us and saying, "No, I've heard this announcement. I'm not actually sure what it's for, but I know I can get X." And how do we as a business take advantage of that? So I do think there is a lot of great stuff out there. Traineeships, for me, I do believe in. I think they're a scheme that, especially for our young people today, are really needed. We have a lot of apprenticeship vacancies, so actually at the moment we are finding that the SME market are starting to recruit apprentices, and that's an upward trajectory. What we do find, and especially again because we go back to the school leavers this year, no exams, no problems, probably no work experience. This is where the traineeship scheme could really, really help. We can get those 16-year-olds that haven't got opportunities, that are currently neat, into a traineeship, into a great employer to give them that confidence to move them on. So I do think there's a place in the market for them. I just think we have to be really careful that we put the young people on the right programme.
I definitely think that example there you've just give. I think the traineeship into transition from school leaver into the real world of work or apprenticeship or further education. I think that would be massively beneficial for people who've left school with no interaction, no support over the last few months.
The issue with employers is there's lots of announcements, and they see Kickstart, they see traineeship, they see apprenticeship, and it's like, unless you really understand the sector, what does that mean for me as a business? And obviously that's our job to hide the wiring and make sure that they're put in the right scheme. But there is a lot of confusion around all the incentives at the moment.
Yeah, great. So what is it, over the year, what is it you guys specialise in then, if you want to tell the listeners and viewers what you guys do?
So at DBC, we specialise in making sure that we spark potential in everybody that we see. It doesn't just mean our learners, it means our staff. We have a really great culture of, actually, you work for DBC, you're part of the family, we will invest in you. As a training provider, we specialise in apprenticeships, so we deliver things like team leading, right the way through to hair and barbering, customer service, recruitment, sales. We did win Business Admin Apprentice Provider of the Year in 2018 and again in 2020, which is something I'm really proud of. As a small business, And starting as an apprentice myself, that award is really poignant and means a lot to us. We obviously specialise in employability, and we have lots of courses that we do that help people get back into vacancies, get back into roles. And so generally we are a support service to get individuals back into work and progress throughout their careers. And I would say what we're very good at is doing that lifelong journey with us. So for example, my finance director started as an apprentice herself 10 years ago and has recently been promoted to the board. So we grow our own staff as well through our learners. So we fully embrace the whole opportunity. Our performance manager for employability was also a learner. And again, we really, the values that we instill, we believe in and we make happen.
That's fantastic. Well done on the 2 awards. I mean, you're right. Starting off as an apprentice yourself and then winning them 2 awards must have. Is that the what kind of you been your 3 key highlights in business? Are they up there?
I think DBC is years old this year, so I think that's a highlight itself. So we've been helping individuals for 20 years. A highlight, it depends throughout the years. A highlight can be just passing your matrix at some stage, could have been a highlight. Obviously, a key part for me is winning the awards. Fantastic opportunity, fantastic achievement for the whole team. I'd like to take credit, but as I don't deliver, or it is a team. And to be fair, we took our apprentices along to the awards ceremony with us because they're what make it all happen and all come together. So yeah, I suppose 3 key bits are the apprenticeship awards, being 20 years old today, and I suppose still enjoying what I do every day. Yes, it's tough. There are days that you come in and you think, oh, no, what next? But actually still coming in and getting a buzz from what I do. And I think the nice thing is it's really nice when you see an email come through and someone will say, oh, actually, my learner's been in today. They're really chuffed that they've passed the maths and there's chocolates in the canteen, or there's biscuits or fruit. And I think that's what makes it worthwhile when you see that that learner actually really benefits from what you've done. So I think that's the key bit for me. It's about still seeing those learner successes. I don't think you can ever get bored of that bit.
No. Why do you think you still have that buzz coming into work every day? What does keep you hungry to come into work and to drive the business forward?
If I'm honest, I'm a very competitive person and I don't like to lose. Obviously, you play to win, you learn to lose. So I think that's what keeps me going every day. I really enjoy what I'm doing. There's people that need, especially now, there's even more people that need the help and support from businesses like ours. And I suppose for me, the advantages are I'm self-employed, I have a young family, I'm able to work a really healthy work-life balance around what I do.
Yeah, great. And kind of what's the plans for the next 3 years at DBC? Where's the next challenge going to come?
Oh, ask me today and ask me tomorrow, probably completely different. I suppose surviving the pandemic, coming out of the other side is what every business wants to do. We are in a fortunate position, in a fortunate sector that we're able to do that and help people along the way. What's the plans for DBC? Ideally, we'd just like to carry on helping another 30,000 people achieve.
Yeah, great. That's great. And do you think the pandemic advice to businesses, and when you're talking to businesses, do you think it is survival from the pandemic and then growth out of that?
I think it depends on the size and the type of business that you're talking to. But yeah, most businesses at the moment are wanting to survive, and actually it's survival and fight mode. Yeah,
it's good. It's great. And what's kind of do you think the biggest challenges in the sector are going to be in the next maybe year or 2?
Oh, that's a tricky one. The biggest challenges in the sector, I think, potentially have Ofsted, because we've all had to change our processes, our practices, our ways of working. So there'll be challenges around how that's done. And again, there'll be challenges around funding and bidding and opportunities that have always been around in the sector. I think that's probably it. It's just day to day, really, isn't it? The sector as a whole will face, there'll be a lot more challenges for providers of different sizes. So I'm guessing that large apprentice providers will have big challenges because their numbers will have dropped significantly, which will see a decrease in OPPs. But do you think will be a sector that will start to see quite a few redundancies post March, April time?
I do. I agree with that. I think the bigger ones are the bigger you are in a pandemic, the more you're going to struggle. You're not as agile are you to be able to move.
Yeah.
You started this business on the back of a bank loan, and which I admire that, and I just think it's a massive risk which any person takes. What advice would you give to the small new providers coming into the sector on being here 20 years down the line?
Yeah, I think you've got to make sure that you grow at a rate that you are able to manage, and make sure that the quality is there as well as the growth. And I think that's what really we see a lot in this sector, is we see exponential growth and then the quality isn't there. So I think for new providers, specialise on what you're good at, stick to what you know and grow that, and then plan for growth.
Yeah, good advice. Great advice in terms of and just how important is quality? Can you just let us a little bit of insight on what you guys have done in terms of the quality of?
Yeah, I think quality is at the heart of everything that you have to do in business, and particularly in this sector. You need a quality offer to be able to go out and sell it. You need quality provision to attract learners. You need to make sure that you're driving the right thing for employers, quality right, plus all the tick boxes and the bureaucracy that goes along with the quality. But if you haven't got a quality offer, then you really haven't got a start. So I think make sure that your offer is what is needed. There's no point in offering scuba diving qualifications if it's not needed. So make sure that you actually do your research, you understand what the localities you operate in need, and make sure that you have a quality, innovative. So, for example, in this locality, I've just said to you, logistics is really thriving at the moment. But actually, there's probably 10 or 15 providers offering logistics. So how do you make yours different? So use your innovative, make it different, but keep the quality at the heart of everything that you do.
Great. Why do you think people come and choose yourselves over some of your competition?
I'm a great believer, and I do believe it, that people buy from people. And for me, I think it's really key to build relationships. And over 20 years, we have stuck to what we believe in. We are a great family-run business, and we get a lot of repeat business. So we build those relationships. We have really good relationships with stakeholders, employers. It is about building relationships and actually deliver what you promise. And I think that goes back to small providers, and advice would give them is making sure that actually what you're good at. So we haven't massively, from when we started 20 years ago, obviously our offer has changed, we've grown, it's developed, but our sector expertise is still really where we started off. The core of it is elementary office roles, customer service management, so all of that professional services.
Yeah.
Even though we do hair and barbering, I would still class hair and barbering as a professional service. So I suppose our offer really is we stick to what we know.
What is your biggest offer that you get and your biggest successes? What's your biggest successful offer?
Again, that really depends. So through our employability, our biggest offer, and I know I keep going on to this, is logistics. Predominantly it's been hospitality, that obviously isn't there anymore. Care, we do a lot of care employability. Through our apprentices, it really depends. So our SME market, I would say, is potentially like your customer service, your business admin role. Our levy market are things like our sales apprentice at level 4. So we do a lot of sales, a lot of recruitment, and obviously we do a lot of the team leading and management as well. Yeah,
and obviously we've seen another big provider in the last week in the West Midlands, go into administration, and especially the decline in the hospitality industry as well. It's how do you, if you're in them sectors, how do you innovate? How do you pivot, if you like, has been the word of the lockdown?
Yeah, I think the honest answer is you have to change your offer, so you can still work in that sector, but actually change your offer and the way that you do it, and you've got to just innovate it all the time. For example, if you're in hospitality, you've potentially got coaches that can deliver things such as customer service, business admin, and make sure that you stick again to what you've got the expertise for. Hospitality is really obviously going to take a massive hit, and that's probably where we're going to get most of our redundant learners from. But there are ways around it. Those learners, I suppose, like myself, probably when I was in hospitality, I loved that role, and if I'm really honest, at some stage in the future, that is my retirement plan. I'd love to work back in that sector. I absolutely love it, but there are different things. You've got really good customer service skills if you've been facing customers, so you can move, making sure that the transferable skills you have move into a different sector. Great. And obviously, again, the travel and tourism industry is also hit very hard, but most people in that sector, again, have fantastic customer service skills.
Yeah, I read one during lockdown. It was I think he was a pilot for Ryanair or one of the airlines, and he'd had his first job delivering at Tesco because obviously he wasn't flying planes. So I think there's definitely cross-section. It's looking where the jobs are, and Amazon brought over 1,000 jobs to the northeast very recently with an opening of a plant, and it's like, right, okay, well, if I'm not going to work in a bar, can I go and work in Amazon? Do I have the skills? And I think if you work in hospitality, you've got the skills to work anywhere, because it's your personality that comes over, isn't it?
Yeah, one of our big ethoses in DBC, and we use it as a hashtag on most of our social media, is dream big, and I'm a massive believer in that. Go out, if you think you can do it, and if you think you can't do it, change your mindset and go and do it.
Great. If you had a magic wand and you could do anything you wanted within the business, within the sector, what would you do and why?
Oh gosh, that's put me on the spot. What would I do? I don't know, actually. Let me think about that one. You've really put me on the spot. If I had a magic wand and I could do anything I wanted in the business, I think it would be remove a lot of the bureaucracy and a lot of the hoops that we go through. And one day we're working with a devolved authority, next we're working with a non-devolved authority. So let's make the landscape much clearer. Let's make it a better equal playing field, so we've all got the same playing field. That would be my business ask. In the sector, again, I suppose it is about, let's just take some of everything that we all jump through every day, the hoops. We say we work with West Midlands Combined Authority, so we have a devolved contract and a non-devolved contract, and it's very different. So let's just make it so, I know that one size doesn't fit everything and one isn't good for everything. I do feel really sorry for some of the larger providers that have devolved contracts in 6 regions and then non-devolved, and all the funding rules are very different. We should just make the whole thing much simpler, because ultimately the learner is at the heart of everything we do. And while we're spending lots of money deciphering all the different funding rules, we could be putting that into the learner.
Yeah, it's learner first, isn't it, really? That's and I think sometimes the devolved areas disadvantage the learner, because if they can't come on a program because they fall outside of a certain postcode, if you like, and they should have that bit more flexibility. I think that's the big ask, actually. That's the key word, really, isn't it? More flexibility to make sure that we put the learner at the heart of everything that we do. Mm-hmm. Great. And if you could have a dinner party, you can invite any 3 guests, alive or dead, who would you choose and why?
Well, for selfish reasons, I'd have to invite David Beckham. I probably don't need to explain that one, because it's a bit like fine wine. Who else would I invite, alive or dead? Potentially Elvis Presley. He's somebody for me that was a big part of my childhood. My dad was a massive Elvis fan and obviously died way too soon. Would I invite anybody political to get the party? No, we'd want somebody a bit more fun potentially. Ooh, good one. Ooh. I suppose again I'm going to be very selfish here then and say Jamie Dornan, and again for obvious reasons. I think he'd also be great fun and a good laugh. Ultimately, though, if we're talking about having great fun, probably Jeremy Clarkson as well.
Yeah, I like Jeremy Clarkson. He's fun. He is fun. And a little bit of a plug for yourself. If anyone wanted to find your business, find out who you guys are, where can they find you?
So they can find us at dbc-training.co.uk. We operate within the Midlands, our employability and fixed centres, our apprenticeship delivery, we deliver nationally. So we'd love to hear from anybody that wants support. We'd definitely, hopefully, spark your future.
And I'd just like to finish on something that you said you'd like to go back to the hospitality sector as a part of a retirement plan. What would your retirement plan be when you've decided to hang up your boots, if you like?
I don't know, and I suppose this is something as you get older you ask yourself more and more, isn't it? What is my exit? What do I want to do? I suppose for me, Dave, I think one thing lockdown did really teach me is that I'd need to work. I couldn't be sat at home every day and not working. My retirement plan, I love the hospitality industry. I'm a qualified chef. I would really like, potentially, I can't bake for toffee, and I keep saying that once I retire, I'd love to learn to make cakes and decorate them. Who knows? Yeah. I'm a long way off that, unfortunately.
Do you think that's a business owner's mindset? I do a lot on mindset, and I've had a lot of people on mindset on my other podcast as well. Is a lot of people always say, and I'm the same with my businesses, that I couldn't retire.
Yeah.
Why do you think we're like that? Is it because we don't have anything else going on in our lives but work, or is it do we need to find something else, or are we just programmed where we love business and love work?
I do get a buzz from business. I love it. I was brought up in business, so I was brought up in a local sweet shop. My mum and dad had a sweet shop, and from a very early age, one of my jobs where I used to have to make the 10p mixers. I'm not sure you'd get much for a 10p mix these days. No. Me and my sister used to make up 100 10p mixers every night, and we'd go and weigh the quarters of sweets, and it moved to bagging the potatoes. And so I suppose for me, I've been brought up in business. Fascinates me. I love to see people doing well. I love the ethos of America. So it didn't work, let's forget it, I move on, go to the next one. I think sometimes in this country we're not great at actually, it didn't work, so what, move on, you took a risk. I absolutely love the thrill of coming in, and it's really nice to actually win contracts, win competitions, because that's what it's all about. You're in business to win and to make it, and I know everybody has different drivers. For me, I do enjoy that bit of the business. The bit I don't particularly enjoy is, as we've just spoke about, the quality and the nitty-gritty and all the bits that go with that, but hence why I employ people that do. I'm really good at that bit. So
can I just ask, are you a good people manager?
I'd like to say so, and I think if you'd have asked that question of me 15 years ago, before I had my kids and mellowed and understand life and scenarios, I would potentially say no. I think over the last definitely 10 years, you have to learn that everybody is different and you get different things from different people. And I once, a few years ago, I had a guy that worked for me, and I took a reference from somebody I knew very well, and she actually said to me, he's fantastic, but if you want to get that bit out of him, you need to stroke his ego every day. And actually that was really true. You need to tell him how good he is, but actually got some great results from him. So I do think that, yes, I'd like to say I'm a good people manager. Sometimes you make decisions for the business and people aren't happy with that. And I think over the years, I've learned there are 10 years ago, I would have reacted very differently to how I would react to a scenario now.
Yeah, good. Well, thanks, Kerry. Thanks for the podcast. It's been great. Thanks for telling us your story and DBC, and it's been a great first guest.
Thank you.